Welcome back to Jubes & Co. Special on the Spring Statement today. Lots and lots of you getting in touch, and you do seem to be echoing a central point among you. We're all talking about cutting benefits and slashing them again even further today. Lots of you are asking that simple question: why on earth are we doing all of this to people in this country while simultaneously spending a fortune either A, overseas, or B, on people from overseas that essentially should not be here? I'll look at that question in a little bit more detail before the end of the programme. But look, Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride, he was very robust, I thought, in response to the Spring Statement. Let's take a listen.
What did the Chancellor tax? She taxed jobs and wealth creation. She's destroyed livelihoods, businesses clobbered, big and small companies, the backbone of our economy. Enterprise crushed on the altar of her ineptitude. The CIPD telling us a third of those businesses affected will shed labour. Morrison's losing 200 jobs, Tesco 400, Sainsbury's 3,000 jobs lost. No wonder the Federation of Small Business say that outside of the pandemic, business confidence has been left at its lowest level on record.
And you see, this is one of the key points that many people feel very strongly about. You're a businessman, Richard Tice. The points that Mel Stride were making there about, you know what, you can have all of the goodness in the land, but if you don't have the jobs, essentially, if the companies are not expanding and employing, it's all for nothing, isn't it?
Well, it's worse than that, actually. Confidence has been destroyed by the blunder budget in October. I've had lots of people in Boston Skegness, business owners, saying that they're not hiring people. They're sadly having to reduce hours, particularly in retail and hospitality, reduce opening hours. All of this leads to lower growth, and that's why I'm so concerned we'll be lucky to have any growth whatsoever this year. It's a disaster for confidence, and without confidence, people won't invest their own money, their own equity, in trying to grow their business.
Richard, I think there's going to be another narrative this year, and it goes a bit like this. The FTSE is outperforming the stock market in the United States. That's almost unheard of. The pound is still relatively strong against the euro and against the dollar. Relatively. Not hugely, but relatively. And the gilt markets haven't taken fright about the amount of debt. Why? Because the UK is seen, I know this sounds a bit weird, but is seen as a sort of stable... an island of stability, if you like.
Well, you say that, but actually
in all the other countries.
But today, the bond markets, the moment she sat down, actually the cost of government debt on a 10-year and 30-year did spike upwards. So
and it then came straight back down again, Richard.
They're on red alert.
I think, I think that's the gypsies and the vagabonds, isn't it, doing the business?
No, I mean, you know that what the bond markets did today was they spiked up, they spiked down, and then they came back to basically 4.7%.
Yeah, but Barry, they're at the highest level for 15 years, and that's because they're dead nervous, there's no growth in the system, and there's government
They were nervous, and then they realised what actually had been said in the statement, and they stabilised. You can't get away with that one, I'm sorry.
It's 25 basis points more than it was a month ago, Barry, and it's at a 15-year high, so I can get away with it.
And
Well, you know, one of the things as well that many people talk about when it comes to work and getting jobs is this kind of 16-hour cliff edge that seems to exist for a lot of people when they are on benefits. I don't know if anyone is affected by this in the audience or at home. I'm sure you might be. But I hear Reform UK talking about this a lot. What's your kind of thoughts around that?
When I have a taxi driver say to me there's a shortage of taxis in a certain town because they've worked out they'll have more money in their pocket at the end of the week if they drive for 16 hours and then claim benefits for back pain for the balance 24 hours, you know you've got something badly wrong. And too many people are making that calculation because the tax system is wrong. The threshold at which you pay income tax has been frozen for so many years. And that's why you've got to lift that threshold so that going to work pays, and people make the calculation, if I go to work, I'll have more money in my pocket at the end of the week. I hope we can agree on that, Barry.
Well, I heard you say that earlier today, actually. You advocated raising the threshold from 12,500 to 20,000.
Which was in our contract at the election.
But obviously you hadn't done the arithmetic, because what that would do is it would straight away reduce the money coming into the public purse by 9.75 billion a year. Now, if you also include the freezing of the threshold, which is 1.3 billion, you take that up to about 11 11.5 billion a year, you would be costing the Exchequer. Now, that's 11.5 billion that's not going to defence, that's not going to the NHS, that's not going to be spent on public services. Where are you going to get it from? You're going to have to borrow.
No, I'm going to scrap net stupid zero and save £30 billion.
Yeah, and
even the Climate Change Committee agrees with me.
Yeah, you see, I heard you say that as well.
Energy bills have gone up 280 quid
I heard you
since the election, Barry.
Let him respond.
Energy bills have gone up since the election 280 quid, about 18%, despite the fact that Ed Miliband told us the bills would come down by
and the reason they have...
When will the bills come down?
Well, the reason they've gone up, of course, is because of the tie of your electricity bill to the wholesale gas market, and international gas prices have gone up. But I heard you say it earlier. You only half quoted what the Committee on Climate Change say, because you're right, they say net zero cost will be about 0.2% of UK GDP. 0.2%.
30 billion quid a year,
right?
To the taxpayer.
No, not to the taxpayer, and that's what they say. They say it's actually most of it played by the private sector, and if you
So they're going to give it to you?
Sorry?
They're not going to want their money back?
No. They're investing it in the infrastructure. They're paying it in the infrastructure. And what happens is if you don't invest, the cost, this is what they say, which you didn't quote, they say that actually the cost of not doing it would be infinitely more.
Absolute rubbish. Funny,
well, you disagree with them on that point, but you're happy to quote them on the point that you think makes the point you want.
My point's the only point they've got right. Look, in America, gas prices are
if they're that daft...
Of course revised, because they use their own shale gas that they produce domestically, and we should do the same here. We've got this energy treasure on the feet, and we should use it, Barry. You know it.
Right. OK, you're all clapping him because he's talking about our oil and our gas, right? But it's not. It's not our oil and our gas.
Yes, it is.
No, I'm sorry, it's not. It's sold on the international markets, right? It doesn't come into the UK, right? What happens is it's subsidised in this country by you and me because Rishi Sunak introduced a 130% super tax deductible, which meant that the exploitation of those oil and gas fields, guess who pays for it? Not Shell, not Sycar, but actually you and me, 100%. We pay for the development of it. And hang on, let me finish. And then we give them 30% on top, right? That's the subsidy that you and I are giving to the international companies. They make the money. And this is what I've got against you guys, Richard, because you guys, you're all super wealthy, you've made all your millions, and yet you're telling the poorest people in our society, you know why you're poor? You're poor because there are people who are even poorer than you are in the rest of the world and the immigrants coming into this country. And you get the poor to blame the people who are even poorer.
So let him respond then.
Look, the reality is that America's gas price, it's the same gas, folks. It's a third of our price. Why? Because they use it domestically, they extract it domestically, and you're completely wrong, Barry. That treasure under our feet, oil and gas, we as taxpayers, we all own it. You license people to extract it, but you've decided not to extract it. Right. It's negligent to leave that asset in the ground rather than to extract it and use it domestically.
Let's just clear this up. So if we extract this oil and gas that you're saying is ours, Barry's saying that has to be sold.
It doesn't.
International.
It does. It doesn't. So why is the America gas price a third of ours, Barry?
Sorry.
Just answer the question.
The American gas price is a third of ours because they use shale gas.
So there's not an international price in it. You can keep it domestically and use it domestically.
You
That's
can't.
The answer.
I'm sorry.
That's literally what they're doing, and you've just agreed with me.
No, I haven't.
The international oil markets are a law unto themselves. That's all I'd say about that. I suspect you're probably slightly more right than he is.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, thanks. But
let me put to you,
Michelle, can I just finish that though? Because the point is this. The North Sea Basin, as Richard knows, is a declining field. It's declining by about 7% every year. Those jobs are going to go, and that oil and gas is going to go. As I say, it's sold on the international markets. It doesn't come into the UK, except once it's been refined, and then we pay for it separately. But the profit is made by the companies. And the whole issue is this. How are we going to transition those people? We've already lost 20,000 of them in the industry because it's a declining field. How are we going to actually transition them into the decent jobs that your two kids want for the future? That's why we're investing in the skills, the 400 $300 million that I talked about earlier, because we need to have a fair transition that doesn't leave them high and dry like we left the miners high and dry 50 years ago.
Interestingly, we've just discovered a gas field in Lincolnshire that would give us 10 years' worth of supply of gas. Good jobs, skilled jobs, and cheaper bills, lower energy costs, lower cost of living. This is all due to net zero that has been imposed on the people, ordinary working people, by the people in Westminster. It's a catastrophe.
Let me ask you this. One of the points that keeps coming in, and people are suggesting it on the inbox as well, is wealth tax. Many people saying you should tax the uber rich. Does anyone agree with that? Hands up in the audience.
Yep.
Barry does. Lots of people in the audience does. Can I get a microphone to someone in the audience to have their view? But Richard Tice, your thoughts on that wealth tax? Do you think we should have something like that?
So if you tax the very, very wealthy, do you think they're going to stay here? We live in a globally mobile world, and those people are already leaving in their droves in terror at what this Labour government is doing to this country. You should actually do the opposite. Tell you what you should do. You should charge wealthy people to come and enjoy the privilege of living here. That's what you should do, as opposed to your ridiculous sort of assault on non-doms. They're all leaving, Barry, and so we're actually going to have less tax revenues.
Let me ask the chap with the microphone. What's the comment you want to make?
Well, really, yes, we should have an Uber tax on those who are earning more wealth than some people who are lower down the food chain.
Yeah, but what about that fact that Richard's making, that actually they'll just say goodbye?
Well, I think they might say goodbye, but other people will come into the country and invest in the country. You mentioned about jobs going in the past 15 years. Let's be right. In the past 45 years, from when Margaret Thatcher came into power, we've seen industries go. The car industry went, the coal industry went.
Exactly.
We've gone from an industrial sector to a service industry.
Yeah. Well,
and
you're
you talked about
absolutely
working
right.
from home. You know, people's mental health working from home in isolation has a bearing against going into an office being surrounded by people.
Yeah.
You're right, sir, but because of this drive to decarbonise, because of net zero, we're deindustrialising. We've got the steel industry on its knees. We've got the automotive industry collapsing, the oil and gas industry collapsing, the chemicals industry collapsing. This is what is happening. Because of decarbonisation, we are deindustrialising society and making everybody poorer.
When Elon Musk was talking the other day, a lot of people were deriding him. And I was interviewing somebody at the time and said, so what's the problem with Elon Musk? And he said, look around the UK, there are thousands of Elon Musks. All they need is the opportunity to be able to express themselves in the kind of businesses that they want to run. We're terribly good at ideas and not very good at actually putting them into practice.
Absolutely right.
That's where I would think, that's where I want a government, if there's
But that's because of over-regulation and over-taxation. People flee to America because you've got lower taxes, lower regulation, smarter regulation, and they've got higher growth. It's really very simple.
I'll tell you something else that's very simple. Time. It marches on. Look at this. It's almost marched out of time. I very much appreciate each and every one in the audience, each and every one of you at home, and of course, many of you, all of you on the panel tonight. I've got to say, all those millionaires, there's many of them that patriotic millionaires, they want to be charged more tax. Well, guess what you can do, my friends? Pay it voluntarily if you're that desperate to do so. That's all I've got time for.